right, we're gonna call the redevelopment commission meeting to order. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with, there weren't any minutes that, I don't know if we got any minutes.
Were minutes, she sent them a couple days after we, after we met, so I don't remember, that might be January or February.
Yeah, I could try and find those probably, but I don't know if I can find them.
They were emailed to each of us.
Yeah,
All right. From there, we'll just go into old business. Does anybody have any old business?
I've got the,
Financials?
minutes, no, the minutes here.
Okay.
I don't know, but she might have only sent it to me, sorry.
I thought I saw it. Maybe
I think she sent it to everybody, didn't she?
What is your email?
SLlibrary@gmail.
Basically, it was just our organization. Josh discussed TIFs and what we were tasked with, and talked about our CDs at the bank.
Do you want to make a motion from,
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, Mac, do you want to go over anything to do with the financial?
Yeah, so, our account balance at German American, as of 3/31 is $15,664.24. We had, based on last meeting, we rolled over those two CDs. I believe we rolled them over on 6 months. And I have checked with some of our institutions. They're all pretty well, because we have two that are coming up in the beginning of May. They were all pretty well the exact same rates, and none of them would commit to the rates now. They said check back closer. So, but we do have two CDs coming up in May that we'll have to decide what to do with. I can check back with those banks in the next 2 weeks, and then go from there.
Do you remember what the deadline was? I can't remember. Was it the 10th, like the other one was
I think it was-
February the 10th?
Yeah, I think it was May, I think it's May 10th. So, and we do have our May 6th meeting, where we could take action on that. That gives us enough time to,
Go and make those changes. Okay,
so, right now, German American, CD is gonna be 7 months at 4.1, 37 months at 3.6. Hoosier Hills, 4.45, 4.54, and Freedom was 4.1 and 4.16. Those were on 1 year term, or sorry, those were 6 months. The 1 year term was 3.95 and 4.01. So all of them have different terms, different rates. None of them were committable until closer to the time to renew. So if you guys want, I can check with them again, and we could have. Do we want to have a meeting May 6th?
that's in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. But if these go May 10th,
Well,
do we just want to make a motion that I get with them, and whoever has the best 6 month rate, we go with them, or like how do we want to handle?
yeah, I would like to, why don't we just make a motion to make a decision on whoever has the best rate?
Right, but it's different, it'll be different terms. Like, German-American was 7, some were 6. The other one was 37 months, 1 year. So, I think it kind of decides on where we're going, what we want to do.
We can accept that in the commissioner meeting, can't we?
I don't know. We good?
Just
So-
accept
That way
it.
we don't have to have a redevelopment meeting to discuss the CDs.
Well,
And all of these are from 2 weeks ago, so,
Yeah,
we're right in the
so they
middle
don't
of,
change.
yeah.
I'd say to decide what kind of terms you want, what we feel we want, and then
Just get it.
make a
get it
motion.
along
We
the
can
way.
make a motion now.
There you
If we
go.
want 6 months, we'll make a motion,
Yeah.
I would feel, I think 6 months would be kind of a sweet spot in case something pops up. We're not too far out to do something.
So I'll make the motion to renew the 2 CDs that are coming due in May for 6 months at the, to the highest rate on the 3 businesses you've inquired prices.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
So, with all of those, we're about 115, 116,000-ish with the CDs and what we have accessible right now.
Okay. Any old business? New business, I presented to each of you a Spencer County redevelopment strategy outline. This is something for us to review and come back to our next meeting to discuss. I also sent each of you the Spencer County interim report, preliminary community analysis. Since the county has hired RJL Solutions as their economic development and leader at this time, we will be receiving a strategic plan that they are creating that will be submitted to the county commissioners. Once that is approved, many times people make the comment that we don't want this sitting on a shelf, so I think it's all of our jobs to make sure that we follow the strategic plan and put those things in place, what the community has requested that they would like to see. The introduction is Spencer County is committed to intentional redevelopment that gives growth, improves quality of life, and prepares the community for the future. The plan prioritizes actions, not paperwork, with clear steps and collaborative implementation. Key partners, including the Plan Commission and Port Authority, play a critical role in long-term success. Something that's also been discussed is a training session to redevelopment to understand what our role is. I don't know if in previous years they've done anything like that.
No, not really.
For me, I think it would be beneficial. I don't know about you and Jim, but I would like to understand a little bit more about what we can do as a redevelopment commission and bringing things forward. We do have funds. We can go to the council and request more funds. It was brought up today in the commissioners meeting to discuss a new development area. Everybody got a copy of that or not? But there is some a sewer project for this area that has been requested to fund for 4 houses at this time, depending on the council's decision. I think this is something that we need to look at as a development area. This is also, some of us have already looked at it, but this is also the parcel as it's parceled out. I think this is something that our redevelopment should look at as a project to recommend on how we could go about bringing more development to the area. That's just something that I'm presenting. I would like to know what everyone else's thoughts are with that.
As far as this particular project, the way it's platted out,
It's not that.
It's not.
That plot was done in 1970. So
yeah.
that'll be totally useless to anything that goes forward in this area.
Well, actually, I looked at it today in the planning, and it's what it is our GIS that prints out is not exactly how it looks on the paper. So like where those darker lines are that I wrote in, those are actually easements that can be the streets. It just doesn't show it on this document.
Okay.
Some of this that I thought it did, because it did have it in green on the computer, but
I know this might be a little more detailed than what you're maybe looking for, but my question would be, to be approved as a county street or county road, how wide do they have to be? I mean, there's certain.
That's all in that's all.
Yeah, I
That's a
looked
state-
at it not
yeah.
long ago. I feel like it was around 22.
I can't even remember. You had to talk to Dale.
But we
about
do
that.
have,
I
we
mean,
do have
there's
yeah.
there's what has to be. I do know that.
so in this situation, it could be looked at as a subdivision.
Well, I just looked at, the way it's platted out now, there's 44 separate parcels. Now that they're all broke up, it's really hard to see how many acres that is, but I mean, if it does end up going to development, I don't know, there's 30-ish acres probably. And looking at the way some of the streets are set up, and like you said with the easements, there's definitely potential there for big picture, 10 years down the road, there's 25 houses there, which 25 single family homes, it's 2 people working, and so,
Well, I don't
more
even
people
know
buying
that
things,
we
more
would need to
people.
wait 10 years for homes to come into play. I mean, we just built how many duplexes in 3 years? How many were in that last subdivision?
She just said three or four were going in,
I mean, total, I think it was
17.
maybe 17 or 18 units.
Well, I think this is probably just I don't really know what the terrain is out there, but I think their roads are a little more cut and dry, and this would probably have engineering costs alone would be a lot more expensive, I would assume.
Well, the 4 lots that, we're covering right now do have road access already.
Yeah.
A county road,
yes.
a county road is there already. So anything that we go forward with will be where we have to, like you said, figure out roads and all that.
So what's the status on is there a certain status on the whole property? I'm not real familiar with that.
No, there isn't. I just think that that's a project. If we're wanting to spend money to put in 4 homes with the sewer system that was requested today, I think that it's something that we should extend and not just sit on the 4 homes,
No, I-
develop this into a project that we're working towards. And that's something that we can do as a redevelopment commission.
Yeah, I agree. I think the project today eliminates a barrier and would hopefully spur, but, like I said, the fiscal body, they'll do the feasibility of, does it make sense? I think it's a good idea, but I don't cut the check. So, I think ultimately, yeah, one leads to another. And, you know, I don't know if that's something we sit here from this position and there's some type of momentary incentive of, hey, you build a house, we already put the sewer there, we'll pay the initial hookup or whatever that gets a $350,000 home built.
Well, and I think that's something from a redevelopment standpoint that we can do also is market what we have out there. You know, and that's something new to our county that I don't know that we've ever done that before. And
Well, I think a big benefit of this location specifically is that it is right down the road from Josh's house, and people want to go to Ward County all the time and go eat at, I don't know where you guys go eat over there, Archie and Clyde's?
Marita,
Where?
Marita,
Where's that?
is it a place on the river?
No. See, I don't even know, but I'm assuming people that would live here might go over there and work or eat or, you know, I don't know. I think their location is very advantageous. You know, maybe some people that, I think there's 8,000 cars that go past Hatfield every day. And some of those people might be like, yeah, this commute kind of sucks. I wish I could buy a nice house, a new house.
right.
So I agree. I think there's big picture items that we could look at, but I don't have a good solution.
I think these are things that could be discussed in a work session that would help us understand how we can move forward with these type of projects. That was just my recommendation. So this document that I submitted today as a strategy outline, I would like to keep that as a working document that we work off of. And then that gives everybody time to read over the county interim report. You know, in this report, it discusses our population declining, our numbers in our schools, in different areas.
You're talking about the RJL thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
how that is declining.
We are older than the state average. We have less younger people than the state average.
So there's some good information in here. I mean, I don't have that much to discuss other than I think that from a redevelopment standpoint, we need to understand what tools we have in our toolbox by doing the work session. So Josh, you mentioned that, were you wanting to help with this work session, or should we ask RJL Solutions?
I haven't given it any thought. I'm always happy to help, but this seems like maybe something that's more in their wheelhouse.
So I think that's just something that we should plan for our next time. I can get with them and find out when works for them. And you're saying that evenings work best for you?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I mean, we may have to do this in more than one session, because not everybody has that much time to take 6 hours in the evening. Anyway, that's all I have for new business.
Did we skip over old business or?
I already said old business, but do you have any old business we can go back? Anybody have anything else? I guess if something comes about with this subdivision or the sewer, then we'll need to schedule another meeting. Or I would like to go ahead and just schedule another meeting so we can make sure that we get that in place. I mean, I don't have to do it today because we would need to make sure.
But what would need to be done, I guess, for the subdivision, because,
Right now, we're waiting on the council
yeah,
to approve any funds.
they're, what source? Because you've got redevelopment funds, but also the county has the authority in this situation to spend general fund for it, and I don't know what they do it out of, and what you guys would wanna, I mean, you can meet all you want, I just wasn't sure what the.
You mean in regards to the subdivision?
Well, I don't know, I thought you said you wanted to have potentially another meeting about it.
Well, I think that we should schedule the training session
Oh.
before we schedule a meeting to discuss this. And then if the council approves the funding for the 4 homes, whether they do or don't, I think that that's something that we should roll into as being a project. But at the same time, I think we need the training to understand what our role is. Because there's other redevelopment commissions that have purchased their own land and created a model in that within our county.
As the treasurer of this body, we don't have to giddy up to do much
We
of that.
don't, so we would need to develop a project.
I'll tell you, the purpose behind that, legally speaking, is when a governmental entity buys property, you have to go out, or sells property, you have to get bids, you have to get appraisals, you have to follow this, that you can't act nimbly. And in an economic development standpoint, that's really valued. You get somebody that wants to come in and put in a factory or fill in the blank type thing, they want the property quickly and they want to know they can get it. And so the state legislature said, we recognize you have all these handcuffs as a government on how you buy and sell land, but we're going to allow you to create redevelopment commissions that can act very quickly. You can buy land often without following, there's some rules, but not as many, and you can own, sell it, do all of that kind of stuff through the redevelopment commission, and that's the idea. The other idea is if you've got like a dilapidated place and you want to redevelop it, well, it's hard as a county to sort of justify buying it, again, after all those hoops, and then just sitting on it. And this is so, let's say you have an industrial park you want to create, or, you know, whatever, that's the idea behind it. Doesn't mean you have to do it, this is just a tool that the state is offering.
Why do you think from a redevelopment standpoint, we need to look at the projects that are coming in the 231 and Highway 66 area also? We have Superior Ag that is coming. We have a couple of other projects that are looking at that area. If there is infrastructure that's needed in that area, that could be something that could be a TIF district. That way it is, those dollars are helping produce what might be coming to that area. That way we're not pulling general funds to put in infrastructure, if that's a request. And that's where I think we need to learn the tools that we have or can be used from a redevelopment standpoint. So it kind of goes back to our training again.
Josh, you have any experience with like the bonding process
Oh, yeah.
and how, you know, the expense of doing that? Is that something?
Oh, yeah.
Is that something you can do, or something
You know,
that's
I-
pretty hard done?
I mean, I couldn't count the number of bonds that we've been a part of. We have 3 or 4 people in our firm that's all they do, is municipal bonds. So I know I usually ride what we call second chair, and I kind of help it out, but we have subject matter experts. I mean, that's a pretty complicated, tax-intensive process, but we do have people that do that.
So he made the comment, and I want to refer back to that, and I think you've made this to me before, but I just want to understand it from a legal standpoint. The cost of bonds has what has kind of hindered maybe projects in the past?
Well, the cost of issuing a bond on a small project.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
'cause
I
I inquired about
yeah.
like something similar to this. How much would it cost to, you know, do a TIF,
Yeah.
issue a bond,
Yeah, it's,
and no definitive answer, you know?
yeah, they're the 2 biggest expenses. You would need a financial advisor to estimate the revenues, etc. At the end of the day, somebody is buying these bonds. It could be a bank, it could be, sometimes, actually the state has a great bond bank if you qualify. But whoever is buying the bonds wants to know that a professional following certain procedures, number one is follow the law, i.e. the lawyer, but number two, that you've got a credible financial advisor that has crunched the numbers to ensure there's a revenue stream that can pay off and pay back the bond. So the financial advisor is part of that. They tend, don't hold me to this because it just changes who you deal with, but you might be paying $20,000 for that process for them. And then the complexity of the type of bond will impact what the lawyers will charge. Typically, the Indianapolis firms that I think you guys have used in the past, I wouldn't be surprised at $50,000, $60,000 as a cost for issuance. Now, I know that on a lot of our deals, it's the guys I work with can do it closer, 30, 40 often. But it just depends, still, it's not cheap, to your point.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, if you had a couple $100,000 project and you spend $60,000 to,
Exactly.
just that percentage just throws the
Right.
numbers out.
You're
You
right.
can't do it.
Yeah, you're right.
So it need to be a bigger project, or is the return
Well,
on the investment that we're putting into the property, if somebody is building houses here,
yeah,
the
that's all
assessed
part of the
value
question.
of 30 houses could support what it costs for the
Well, I
bond.
guess my limitation, as I thought the limitations would be, so this property's sitting here for sale now. No developer seems to be picking it up or showing interest. And then we buy it and add another $60,000 to the expense. That maybe I'm looking at this wrong. So we add $60,000 onto the existing price of it because we bought it and we bonded it. So now, let's say it's $500,000. I don't know what the property's worth. $500,000, let's say. And now we added $60,000 to the price of that. And already there was an so where am I buying $60,000 worth of interest? Not, interest in this property. How am I promoting that for $60,000 more than we originally bought it for? That's my question.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm answering your question, but the cost of issuance gets rolled into the bond itself, so it's typically paid right out of so if you bond $500,000 and the cost of issuance is $60,000, then $440,000 ends up in the bank account, and the accountants and lawyers get paid off all the time. That's how it typically works.
Right.
Um,
So I guess that's the way I'm running the math in my mind is we end up with a $500,000 property that we owe $490,000 on, and we had to pay, the attorneys and those representatives $60,000 to make that all happen.
yeah.
Versus if we just had the capital,
Yeah.
say
yeah.
from the county, we could just buy it and save
Yeah, well, that's
$60,000.
true. Yeah, but that's always true, right? If you don't have to borrow money and you have it in your pocket, that's far better. Yeah, that's always true. It's like you go buy a car, you're better off not taking a loan out if you can.
Right.
So that's always the better route. But people do it. Municipalities do it because they don't have that capital sitting around.
But then, I guess when we just kind of lay in wait for, somebody, private investor come in, kind of lay out the numbers that make sense on a property they're interested in and help them make that work. That's kind of how I looked at how the commission should operate, right?
Yeah, and this can all get real complicated, but another thing that people like is what's called a build, operate, transfer, where you guys can issue bonds at a far cheaper rate than developers can. And so what is becoming increasingly popular is you guys will go buy land, do all this infrastructure, go bond it out, but make the developer is on the hook, and you guys are effectively middlemen. The developer's on the hook to pay it back, And they do it in the form of, you can structure it however you want, but one could be an interesting, where basically a lease, where you're leasing it to them, and then you transfer it once it's paid off. But there's all kinds of different complex, that you guys can shield your exposure if you want to, and basically pass the buck on to the developer. That's always the ideal. But the developers often want, in fact, that happened whenever for the St. Meinrad solar panels. They think as I recall, they use the Redevelopment Commission as a conduit for bonding authority. Redevelopment Commission has not on the hook at all, but they were able to use you guys effectively for the lower interest rate. That's exactly what that was.
I'm interested, I would bend over backwards to help an interested party,
Yeah.
do something like this. But to go in blindly looking for the interested party, then I get nervous about that. Not having, and I'm sure the guys doing the bonds, they're gonna say, "Where's your buyer?" Right? That's part of the
Yeah.
payback. Like, we want to know who your buyer is before we issue these bonds.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of that.
Well, it depends on what revenue stream it's paid out of. If it's out of the general fund, they don't
Right,
care as
right,
much.
yeah, right.
But now, since your county's probably unique, you guys are really financially responsible. I think you probably have some bonding limits still, but most counties have hit. There's general fund that you can bond out of, where that's the security, but there are strict limits on how much you can use that as the security, and most places have hit that. So that's why they get really creative with these TIF districts, because you're allowed to do that even if you've hit your bonding capacity out of the general fund. You can still do it out of a TIF district, or you can still do it on a build, operate, transfer. So that's why they do that, because basically they've hit the statutory max on what they can borrow. I don't know. I've not asked our financial advisor for the county. You guys might not have to get creative about it. You might be able to bond out of your general fund, which makes it a lot easier. It makes the legal fees cheaper. You talk about the 50, 60,000. You're probably looking closer to like a 30,000, or maybe even less. Don't hold me to that, but you could maybe, because those are far simpler. It's real easy. It's sort of, yeah. Sorry, that was probably more than Jen Seiler wanted to hear tonight, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of bonds or TIF deals.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think it's something that we need to talk about instead of just,
I'm a fan of the
Funding
people
it.
coming in and building it, having the companies come in and build it. If we need to help them with some roads and some infrastructure as far as,
Utilities.
utilities as far as sewers or septic or, any of that, water, whatever, I'm 100% on that. I think we are in a situation as a county that we have the ability to do that. I'm just not a big fan of the bonds and the tips and all that. That's just me.
okay. So, with all that being said, I will find a date for us to reschedule for a understanding of what redevelopment can do. And we'll just keep following down this line. Hopefully by that time, we will have the strategic plan that'll be administered to the commissioners and the council, and I'm assuming to the public. So we can use that as a tool. So that way we have something to look at as to what the people of this county want. Okay, is there anything else? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
I have a lot of respect for Melissa taking notes.